So guys, welcome to today's session, and today I'd like to spend time on looking at our assignment and running through what's really important in the assignment and the key criterion that I'll be looking at. The first part, and I'm going to start reading this out. This is part B, Biomechanical and Performance Analysis of your athlete in the sport that you're going to be doing. You will need to get written consent for the athlete you are analysing. Now look, if it's your friend, family, partner, you certainly don't need to show me that written consent. Now if it is someone who is not part of your maybe friend circle, if it's someone you're not sure whether they'd like to have their photos shown in an assignment, then definitely get the written consent. But otherwise, more often than not, you don't need to. It is also good to get into the habit of getting that written consent, because as you progress through research projects, passing on, as you're doing things like master's theses, PhDs, you need to get that consent. So you can start getting into the habit of getting that consent. All right. Do I need to see it? I certainly don't need to see your written consent. So don't stress too much over that. Your task is to choose a specific movement or technique within a sport. Let's talk about a specific sport and a technique that you might assess. What might it be?
Well, while I'm doing running.
Running, good. In terms of running, are we doing what kind of running?
5K.
5 kilometer running, so long distance running. Now in running, what are you looking at analysing for that person?
Well, I was looking at his foot placement when it lands and pace and see if he's overstepping or not.
Okay, good. So you're looking at two aspects. One is foot placement and also speed that that you're then assessing for that person. So that's actually something very specific, and that's really very good. What I'd also encourage you to do is, before you start choosing the sport or the event or the movement, see if there's any research behind that event or research behind what you're assessing. Because what this project is doing is you're trying to work out what your athlete can and can't do, and then comparing it to an elite athlete, or comparing it to the research. Yeah. So that is something I'd highly recommend you do at the very beginning. So you can choose the 5 kilometer sport, you can choose, say, foot placements, or you can say, foot biomechanics, or understanding how the feet work, but make sure there's some research that you can look at to compare your athlete to that. All right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So.
Because what would happen if you started analysing, say, foot positioning, but there's no research or there's nothing for you to compare it to? What would happen then?
I guess it's not evidence-based.
Yes. And also, what's that example of the badminton that happened?
Yes, there's no data. So
There was no data to compare it to. So if there's no data to compare it to, don't go down that path, because this assignment requires you to assess your athlete and compare it to an elite athlete, or compare it to the league, what the league says, or what the professional sport says. Okay, you will take on the role of a coach. You will take on a role of a coach. You need to complete the following tasks with your athlete and compile a 500-word report. Now, compiling reports, you can describe everything and get your word count, I'm not a big fan of that. If you can start putting things into tables, if you can start putting things in a diagrammatic fashion to showcase either differences or the information that you've compiled, that is far more attractive to see. Why is that far more attractive to see?
I'll just like, would you say like infographics would be like?
Infographics is one because it's easier to follow. And this is a scientific paper that you're writing on a comparison of your athlete to something that is of very elite, and you're then coming up with either solutions to then help that person go from here to there. And if that can be done diagrammatically, showcasing tables, showcasing charts, it's easier to follow, and as a coach, you can then teach that to others a lot easily. All right? So compiling a report, try and structure it around 500. I certainly don't want reports that are, thousands of words, because it means that you haven't, a lot of people, it's really easy to waffle on. But if you can keep it simple, keep it concise, and provide all that important information, you're going to do really well.
Because I had this for the other assessment. So, because like there's the analyst, like the analyst of like Kinetics and all, and then they have to do the qualitative and quantitative data and performance drills and that. So does that count as the 500 words, or is that?
Yeah, the whole.
So the whole thing is 500.
500, but you can put things in charts.
Yeah.
Okay. Look, if you're around the 600, 700 mark, that's okay. But try and keep it concise, because you have the capacity to do that. Next up, the first thing you're going to do. With your athlete, video record a specific movement technique of the chosen sport. Now say with your running athlete, you work out that it is foot positioning that you're measuring, okay? How would you measure, or how would you record that action for your athlete?
Frame for a photo shot, I guess.
Well, first of all, just like this, you'd have the camera set. You'd probably have your athlete coming in this way, and as they walk or run at a certain speed, you can then measure that. Other thing I would recommend someone like a running athlete is you put them on a treadmill. So then you have your camera in the one spot, and then you're recording as you go along in the one place. And the consistent or the variable thing that, or one variable you can change is the speed of the treadmill, right? So you can start working and utilize things like that for your analysis. Once you record the specific movement, then number 2 is you need to analyze that movement according to kinematics and kinetics. Yeah? What's kinematics? Analyze the movement in terms of kinematics. Describe the motion without forces. That's kinematics. Motion in relation to the forces is kinetics, and how the muscle activation occurs. So, running, forward movement, direction, and then you're talking about the muscle activation, the use of quads, hamstring, calf, to then create that. So for something like running, you're then breaking up the movement into kinematics and kinetics. If you're unsure what kinematics and kinetics is, go and look it up, but another good way of learning about this is to utilize artificial intelligence. So one of the key things you can do is go into Bard or ChatGPT and say, can you please describe the action of a 5-kilometer run in terms of foot biomechanics according to kinematics and kinetics, and then it'll help describe that. If it still comes out and you can't understand the concept too well, say, can you please explain this to a 7-year-old? And then it'll come up with another solution. That will further enhance how you can understand these different types of concepts. Okay? Is that clear? Number 3, analyze the performance from a qualitative and quantitative perspective. So, qualitative, observe and report subjectively on the performance. This should be in comparison to an ideal. So, in running, how would you know someone is running well?
Pace.
Pace is one. What's another thing?
Breathing, I guess.
Yeah, posture. Okay, so if they're breathing comfortably, if they're getting across quite comfortably, how would you know someone's running badly?
They land on their back foot instead of their front.
Yeah. So you can talk about the quality of the movement. And the quality comes down to bad form. Bad form comes down to when you observe something with bad form, it's really hard to watch over and over. That's why professional athletes are so good to watch, because their form, quality, right through range of motion is a lot better. Their range is very good. The quality and the control within that range is excellent. Therefore, the form is good. Therefore, the quality is good. So that's the definition of understanding how to look at something qualitatively. Next, quantitatively. Objectively measure using an appropriate instrument, in this example, goniometer, coach's eye app. What is a quantitative analysis then? Or how are you analyzing according to quantitative? What do you guys think?
It's like number of steps.
Number of steps could be one. We're now looking at movement patterns. So what you explained before is positioning someone running badly, the back foot hits first. Yeah? So if the back foot is hitting first, you can then take a still shot of your amateur athlete and then a still shot of the professional athlete. Now this is why it's important to go back, or the first step is to see if there's any data or research based on your professional athlete. So there would be data showing back foot versus forefoot landing, and if they have landed on the back foot, you can then analyze that according to quantitative data, or you could analyze it quantitatively. Quantitatively, what's a goniometer? Do you guys know what a goniometer is? A goniometer is something that physios use to measure angles. So a movement like that, we can then measure the angles using the goniometer. Things like Coach's Eye, they're apps that pick up angles for you. Now you can use your smartphone to do the same thing, because at foot strike, if there was a still shot, you can measure the angle of the foot. Versus a good athlete, the angle's different. So you can use things like the technology we have in our smartphone to do this, but a still shot with angles drawn on it is going to show that you have been able to analyze the performance quantitatively. Does that sound okay? Number 4, your findings must adhere to accepted norms within the current literature. So if you say to me, yes, Gasal, the back foot strikes last, forefoot strikes first in long distance running. Back it up with research, and there would be research showcasing that. And you can then say, my athlete has a a backward strike, and the research shows a forefoot strike. Yeah? 4-foot strike. So we have a 4-foot strike, and this is what the research shows for that. And then I'd like you to put that in an in-text citation, because that's a comment that you've come up with. That's a comment that you've made. If it's an opinion, if it's a statement, yeah, and it's backed up by research, you put an in-text citation according to the Swinburne Harvard style of referencing. All right? That's the accepted norms. So you have your athlete, you've worked out that they've got a back foot strike, they should be having a 4-foot strike, because that's what the research shows. And you then try and work out, well, how can I improve this person? If they've continuously got a back foot strike, what are some things that they can do to improve that?
Well, what I have for that is like they call it recovery runs.
Yep.
And like get them to do like that, so it's like more low energy and like only focus on like foot placement.
Good. Yep. So low energy runs could be one solution. What else could be happening?
I think I had lunges as well.
Lunges. So strength is another aspect. What else?
I guess like being mentally aware of it, like
Yeah. So things like visualization. So if we use the first two things, they're physical, visualization is the psychological aspect of it. The first two things, design a series of drills to improve the performance within the sport. Now these drills, you'll see later on, have to be, it's something that you create over 4 weeks. So week 1, it might be 2 runs that are low intensity. Week 2, it might be 3. And so on. So you're building a person up so they can run better. You talked about lunges, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like,
Okay, so lunges, you've noticed that if they improve strength, they could then benefit from this, or benefit from avoiding the back foot strike. Therefore, you then say, look, in week 1, the strengthening program that I'm giving is 3 to 4 times a week, because this is what the research says to build up strength. The literature also said that with this low intensity running program, if it's done over a month and it's built up, then there's going to be benefits as well. Okay. We'll go through all of this and then we'll ask questions at the end. Number 6 then, research and report on psychology techniques that could improve performance, such as visualization and meditation. You covered visualization there. Should we back it up with an in-text citation?
yes.
Yes. Why is that?
Evidence?
Evidence. Because you are saying that for this runner, if they visualize this technique, it's going to improve them in text citation, according to Harvard, the Swinburne Harvard referencing way. And then you add that reference at the end as a reference list as well. So a lot of people, they suggest, where is it? Visualization. They might come up with the best psychological techniques, but they miss out on marks because they haven't given the reason or the reference for it. So just make sure you remember that for number 6. Implement the drills over a 3 to 4 week period with the aim to improve the performance with the technique. So if they do this low intensity running drill, if they improve lunge strength, if they improve and continue to do this visualization technique, ultimately what will happen to your athlete?
True.
Yeah, they go from this to that. Number 8, at the end of the training period, redo the video that you did initially. So they're now back on the treadmill, and being back on the treadmill, all of a sudden you see a better forefoot strike, right? Complete the performance analysis and analyze the movements. And that's where you can go back and comment on quality, and you can go back and comment on, yes, now the angles have changed. So you're reporting back on how qualitatively things have improved and quantitatively. And coming together, that improves performance. Record any improvements that have occurred. If I were to say, yep, my athlete's improved, versus, yes, my athlete has improved by 15% in terms of a change in angles. They're now a lot closer to the norm from what the research shows. And their running speed has improved. They can sustain their speed over a larger period of time. And their recovery is a lot better. Is that good? Yeah. Because you're reporting back on improvements, but you're being very objective about it. Okay? The final thing, how you put it together, write 500 words. Although it says minimum, I'm not too fussed about a minimum. If you can explain everything that you've done and showcase this report in 100 words, using things like charts, diagrams, graphs, do it. Because I'm after simplicity rather than, yes, let's put in a whole bunch of words where it's for a person like another coach or an analyst, it's harder to follow. You're trying to make things, and this is what good sports scientists do, they make the very complex very simple, and you can then pass that on. Okay? Create a 500-word report on the findings of your project. You can break it down into those 5 sections: title, introduction, assessment, intervention, and the discussion. Everything that we talked about in the top 9 steps, you can put it in there. Now, this is due in another 2 weeks. So, we're trying to create a 4-week program. What do? What I suggest you do, the first day you have that person on a treadmill, get them doing the wrong thing. So the research you have researched, or the information you've researched shows, oh yeah, back foot strike is not good. The first video, get them doing that. Sit there measuring it, get the angles, talk about the qualitative movement, and ultimately you come up with a plan over the 4 weeks, yeah? And then redo the video and showcase how things have changed. I'm far more interested in you analyzing something that's bad and then providing a solution and then saying, yeah, this is how things have improved. That's my suggestion, because not many people have already started this assignment. Okay? Does that help? Yeah? Now, this is how I'll be marking it. Number 1, with your partner, video record a specific movement within the chosen sport. That's the running on the treadmill. Once the video is done, take the still shots, because that's what you will be putting into your Word document. The movie can be uploaded into when you submit it as well. Number 2, analyze the movement in terms of kinematics and kinetics. Could those be subheadings under assessment? Yes. As soon as I see kinematics, then I know you guys have written something about it, and then analyze your runner according to that. Analyze the performance from a qualitative and quantitative perspective. Another subheading, qualitative analysis, quantitative analysis. for running. Please provide screenshots to compare and analyze differences. This is where I say use images to your advantage rather than simply words. Because some people say, oh, this athlete did this, explaining everything as they went along, versus this is what the elite athlete does. 2 photos will beautifully show that. And then describe the photos. It's much easier and less amount of words. Then you're not too stressed about wasting too many words. Qualitative and quantitative once again. Make sure you put those subheadings in so it's easier to follow. Your findings must adhere to, number 4, your findings must adhere to accepted norms within the current literature. So you have your amateur athlete, you've compared it to an elite athlete, but also make sure there's research backing up what you're talking about. And then use the Swinburne-Harvard style to reference. That's going to be very important. And once you do that, I know, and use in-text citations. As soon as you have a comment, opinion, something about your or something about your athlete in comparison to the research, in-text citation. A lot of people, as I said, miss out on marks where they say, oh yes, it's in the research. Where? Because a person's not going to go down to the reference list and go, oh, which part of research was it? It's better if it's an in-text citation. Design, norms, yep. Number 5, design a series of drills to improve the performance within the sport. That's like what we've just talked about. You might have more, you might have, probably best to have, quite a few. Research and report on the psychology techniques that could improve the performance, such as visualization, meditation. Once again, I want the research based on it. Don't just say, oh yes, visualization. Show me why visualization was important for that athlete. And there's plenty of data that you can pull out for that. Number 7. 7 and 8. Number 7, implement drills needed to improve the athlete's performance within the technique to reach elite status. Record any improvements that have occurred. So this is where you can provide the before and after shots. And also your program that you're creating, which are the drills, put it into a 4-week table format. Here's the program that I developed. It's easier for another scientist or a coach to see what you've done for that athlete. Don't continue to explain it. Put it in charts. Put it in a table format. Finally, write a 500-word report on the findings of your project. Format will be provided in class and will be, and this is in title, introduction, assessment, intervention, and discussion. And in that discussion, you can say foot positioning angles improved by 15%. And you can then say, talk about ultimate changes as well. 5-kilometer run times improved by 4%. Recovery time, normally they take 3 days to recover after a whole week of 5-kilometer runs. This time it's half the amount of time. And this is why my program has been effective. And that's it.